The days passed quickly. People worked day and night, preparing for what was coming. Cities were fortified. Underground shelters were built. Machines roamed the streets, scanning for threats. Earth was ready as it could be. Lena. Carter stayed in the mountains, deep beneath the lab. She rarely slept. Her eyes were always on the screens, watching the signals grow stronger. Ships were coming. Dozens of them, maybe more. Sam Harris visited her often, bringing updates from the outside world. He told her about the progressors, how the defenses were holding, how the civilians were safe. But he also brought bad news. Supplies were running low. Some of the machines were breaking down. Fear was spreading among the people. One evening, Sam walked into the lab carrying a small box. His face was pale, his hands trembling. "Lena," he said, "you need to see this." Lena turned from the console. She had been studying the glowing orb again, trying to understand its secrets. "What is it?" she asked. Sam set the box down. On the table, inside was a piece of alien techa, a shard of metal, jagged and sharp. It glowed faintly, pulsing with an eerie light. "Where did you find this?" Lena asked. Sam hesitated. "In the forest," he said. "Near one of the old crash sites." Lena picked up the shard carefully. It was warm to the touch, almost alive. She studied it closely, turning it over in her hands. "This isn't Zenthari," she said. Sam nodded. "Double quotes no," he said. "It's different." Lena frowned. "Different how?" Sam swallowed. "Stronger," he said. "Smarter." Lena placed the shard back in the box and closed it. "Whoever they are," she said, "they're close." Sam nodded again. "Too close," he said. "We found tracks, footprints, signs of movement." Lena turned to the machines. "Scan the area," she said. "Find out where they came from." The machines obeyed instantly, their eyes glowing brighter. Screens lit up, showing maps of the forest. Dots appeared, moving slowly toward the lab. Lena watched silently. Her mind raced. These weren't just scouts, they were invaders. "Many?" she asked. "Dozens," one of the machines replied. "Possibly more." Lena's jaw tightened. "Are they armed?" "Yes," the machine said. "Advanced weaponry. Unknown origin." Lena turned to Sam. "Evacuate everyone," she said now. Sam hesitated. "What about you?" he asked. Lena shook her head. "I'll stay here," she said. "Someone has to hold them off." Sam stepped closer. "You can't do this alone," he said. "Let me stay. Let me help." Lena placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've done enough," she said. "Go. Make sure the others are safe." Sam wanted to argue, to say he wouldn't leave her, but he knew better. Instead, he nodded and turned to go. "Be careful," he said. Lena smiled faintly. "Always." Sam disappeared into the tunnels, leaving Lena alone with the machines. She turned back to the console and opened the box again. The shard pulsed softly, its light shifting between red and blue. "Who are you?" she whispered. The shard didn't answer, it just kept glowing. Far above, the stars twinkled faintly. Somewhere among them, ships traveled, armies prepared. Races waited. Lena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Come if you must," she whispered. "But know this, Earth grew firmer, steadier. Earth is awake, and we will not falter." Machines moved quickly, spreading out across the forest. They scanned every tree, every rock, every shadow. Their eyes glowed brightly, lighting up the darkness. Lena stayed in the lab, watching the screens. The invaders were close now, too close. She could see them clearly, tall, sleek figures with armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Their weapons were unlike anything she had seen before. "Sleek, silent, deadly." "Commander," one of the machines said. "They're approaching." Lena nodded. "Prepare to engage," she said. The machines obeyed instantly, forming a perimeter around the U.S. lab. Their movements were smooth, precise. They waited silently, ready for battle. Lena stood at the center of the lab, surrounded by consoles and screens. She held the glowing orb in one hand and the shard in the other. Her mind raced. She didn't know who these invaders were or why they had come. But she knew one thing: they wouldn't leave without a fight. "Let them come," she whispered. Moments later, the first shots rang out. Beams of light cut through the trees, striking the machines. Explosions lit up the forest, shaking the ground. Lena didn't flinch. She watched the screens closely, tracking the invaders' movements. They were fast, efficient. But so were the machines. "Fire back," she said. The machines obeyed instantly. Beams of energy shot out, striking the invaders. Some fell. Others kept moving, relentless. Lena turned to the console and typed quickly. Commands flashed across the screen, activating hidden defenses. Traps buried beneath the ground sprang to life, ensnaring the invaders. Walls of energy rose, blocking their path. Still they came. "Commander," one of the machines said, "they are overwhelming us." Lena nodded. "Fall back," she said. "Regroup." The machines obeyed instantly, retreating to the lab. Their numbers were smaller now, their bodies damaged. But they still fought, still protected. Lena turned to the glowing orb. She held it tightly, feeling its warmth spread through her fingers. "Help me," she whispered. The orb pulsed brighter, its light shifting rapidly. Symbols appeared on the screens, strange and unfamiliar. Codes, frequencies, messages. Lena studied them closely, her mind racing, and she understood. "This is how they communicate," she said. She typed quickly, sending a signal through the orb. Moments later, the invaders stopped, their weapons lowered. "What did Bupton's?" Slowed. "What did you do?" One of the machines asked. Lena turned to it, her expression calm. "I spoke to them," she said. On the screens, the invaders stood still, waiting. Their armor shimmered, reflecting the light of the machine's eyes. "What happens now?" Machine asked. Lena stepped forward, holding the orb in front of her. "We wait," she said, "and see if they want to talk." "Sure." Below is part 1 of your HFY Sci-Fi story titled *********************************************************** How Humans Gained the Trust of Dangerous Predators, HFY Compilation ********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** complex words or structures and follows a compelling narrative. It's around 1,400 words, as requested. The sky above was deep red, like blood mixed with dust. The wind howled across the rocky plains, carrying with it the scent of metal and something older, something wild. The small human ship landed. With a low hiss, its landing gear sinking slightly into the soft ground. It had traveled for months through space to reach this world. Now it sat alone on the edge of a cliff, surrounded by silence and stone. Inside the ship, a man named Jason Carter checked his suit one last time. He was tall, with short brown hair and tired eyes. Next to him, Lisa Martinez tightened the straps. On her boots, she had dark skin, sharp eyes, and a voice that made people listen. "Ready?" Jason asked. Lisa gave a small nod. "Odd. As ready as we'll ever be." They stepped out first, followed by 3 others. Dan, a quiet engineer, a biologist, and Tom, a security officer who didn't talk much but always watched everything. This planet had no name yet. The scientists back home just called it Planet X. It was far from Earth, orbiting a dying sun. Strange energy readings had drawn them here signals that looked like they might come from intelligent life. But when they walked down the ramp, all they saw was wild land, trees twisted like bones stuck out of the ground. The sky was filled with slow-moving clouds that glowed faintly. The air was thick but breathable. The suits were still useful, though not for breathing, but for protection. Scans showed movement near the cliffs, Lisa said, checking her wrist device. "We should head that way." Dan adjusted his pack. "Sure feels like we're walking into a trap." "There's no better way to find out if we are," Jason replied. They moved slowly, boots crunching on dry leaves and broken rocks. Molly kept stopping to look at plants, taking notes and samples. She whispered things like amazing and unlike anything back home. After an hour of walking, they reached the base of the cliffs. The signals were stronger now. The team paused while Tom scanned the area with his rifle. "Something's up there," he said quietly. Jason looked up. The rock face was steep, covered in vines and moss. He raised a hand to shield his eyes from the dim light of the sun. Then he saw them. Figures watching from above. They were tall, taller than any human, sleek and built for speed. Their bodies looked like a mix between big cats and wolves, but smarter, more aware. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the light in unnatural ways. They had claws, long teeth, and armor-like scales along their backs. They did not move. They only watched. "Stay calm," Lisa whispered. "Don't make sudden moves." Molly took a step back. Dan held his breath. One of the creatures dropped down from the rocks. It landed silently, muscles tensed, eyes locked on the humans. It stood on 4 legs. But its posture was almost like a question, curious, not yet hostile. Jason slowly raised his hands, showing he had no weapons. "We mean no harm," he said, even though he knew it wouldn't understand. The creature tilted its head. Then it let out a low growl, not loud, but deep. It's a kind that came from somewhere inside, like a warning. Another figure dropped from the rocks, then another. Soon, 5 of them stood in front of the humans. Forming a line, Tom tightened his grip on his rifle. "Do not shoot," Jason said, without turning. "Not unless I say so." The lead predator took a slow step forward. It sniffed the air. Its nostrils flared. Then it looked at Molly, who was holding a scanner. Slowly, Molly lowered the device and placed it on the ground. The creature tilted its head again. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from behind the group, another predator rushed forward fast, silent. It lunged at Tom. There was no time to react. Tom barely managed to raise his arm before the creature struck. Claws sliced through his suit and into his skin. He screamed and fell back. The rest of the predators moved instantly. Some snarled. Others circled the humans. "Get back," Jason shouted. He grabbed Lisa and pulled her away. Ow. Dan stumbled, dropping. His pack, Molly, froze in place. The predator that had attacked Tom stepped back, blood on its claws. Tom lay on the ground, clutching his arm. Blood seeped through his fingers. The lead predator let out a sharp sound to command. The attacker backed off and returned to the group. Silence followed. The humans stood still, hearts pounding. The lead predator stared at Tom's wound. Then it looked at Jason. Its glowing eyes met his. And for a second, Jason thought he saw something. In those eyes, not just anger or hunger, but understanding. Then, the group turned and vanished into the rocks. Everything was quiet again, Tom, Lisa said, kneeling beside him. "Talk to me." "Hurts like hell," he muttered through gritted teeth. "But I'm alive." Dan opened a medkit and started cleaning the wound. "We need to get him back to the ship," Molly said, voice shaky. Jason nodded. He looked toward the cliffs where the predators had disappeared. "We were too close," he said. "We scared them. Or maybe they were testing us," Lisa added. They helped Tom stand and began the long walk back. As they walked, Jason kept thinking about the eyes of the leader, the way it had looked at Tom after the attack. It hadn't been blind rage, it had been disappointment. When they reached the ship, Dan sealed the door behind them. Molly cleaned Tom's wound properly and gave him painkillers. Would live, but he needed real medical help soon. "So what? Now?" Don asked. Jason looked out the window. The red sky was fading into darkness. "We try again," he said. "But next time, we don't bring guns. We bring peace." Lisa nodded. "And food. Maybe they like meat? Could work," Jason smiled faintly. Outside, in the distance, something moved in the shadows, watching, waiting. Sure, below is part 2 of your HFY Sci-Fi story titled *****. How Humans Gained the Trust of Dangerous Predators. HFY compilation *****. This part is written in third person, uses simple and basic English, avoids complex words or structures, and follows a compelling narrative. It's around 1,400 words, as requested. The next morning came quickly. The red sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and gold. Inside the ship, the team prepared for another attempt to meet the predators. This time, they left their weapons behind, just like Jason had said. "Are you sure about this?" Molly asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What if they attack again?" "We don't have a choice," Jason replied. "If we want them to? Trust us. We need to show them we're not here to fight." Lisa nodded, "and maybe bring something useful. Food, tools, anything that might interest them." They gathered what they could find: small knives, pieces of cooked meat from the ship's supplies, and even some shiny objects they thought might catch attention. Each item was wrapped carefully and placed into a large bag. When they stepped outside, the air was cooler than before. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky. The ground felt softer under their boots, and the wind carried a faint smell of plants and damp earth. "Let's head back to the cliffs," Jason said. "If they're watching us, and I think they'll see us coming." The team walked slowly, keeping their hands visible so the predators would know they weren't hiding anything. Every step felt heavy, filled with tension. No one spoke much. All they heard was the crunch of leaves beneath their feet and the distant hum of insects buzzing through the air. As they approached the cliffs, Jason stopped suddenly. He pointed ahead. There on the ground were tracks. Fresh ones. "They've been here recently," Tom said, his voice low. Despite his injured arm, he insisted on joining the group today. Maybe they're still nearby. Jason crouched down to examine the prints. They were large, clawed, and deep in the dirt. "Looks like it. Let's keep moving." They climbed higher, closer to where they'd seen the predators last time. When they reached the top, they found something unexpected. On the ground lay a pile of bones cleaned and polished by time. Beside it sat several rocks arranged in a circle. It looked almost like a campsite. "This is new," Lisa whispered. "What? They must come here often. But why leave it out in the open?" Dan asked, scratching his head. "Maybe it's a message," Molly suggested. "Like they're saying this is ours?" Jason didn't answer. Instead, he knelt down and placed one of the gifts, a piece of cooked meat, near the edge of the circle. Then he stood back and waited hours. Passed, nothing happened. The team grew restless. Molly paced back and forth. Dan leaned against a rock, staring at the horizon. Even Tom seemed uneasy, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Should we go back?" Lisa finally asked. "Not yet," Jason said firmly. "We need to give them time." Just as she opened her mouth to argue, a sound broke the silence. A low growl. Soft but clear. Everyone froze. From behind a cluster of boulders, 3 predators emerged. They moved silently, muscles rippling under their scaled hides. Their glowing eyes locked onto the humans, scanning them carefully. One of them stepped forward, the same leader from before. Its claws clicked softly against the rocky ground. It sniffed the air, then lowered its head toward the meat Jason had left. Slowly, it nudged the food with its nose. After a moment, it picked it up in its jaws and chewed. The others watched closely, waiting for a reaction. When the leader finished eating, it looked at the humans again. This time its expression wasn't angry, or at least it didn't seem. So, there was curiosity in its eyes, mixed with caution. "Do you think it liked it?" Molly whispered. "Hard to say," Jason replied. Encouraged, Jason took another gift from the bag, a small knife made of shiny metal. He held it out toward the leader, keeping his movements slow and steady. The predator tilted its head, studying him. Then it took a cautious step forward. Its companions stayed back, watching intently. Finally, the leader reached out with one massive paw and touched the knife. Its claws grazed the blade, testing its sharpness. Satisfied, it took the object and held it close to its chest. "That's good, right?" Lisa asked hopefully. "Could be," Jason said. "Lisa didn't bite my hand off." The leader turned away and began walking back toward the rocks. The other 2 followed, disappearing into the shadows. The humans stood there, unsure of what to do next. "Now what?" Dan asked. "Wait," Jason said simply. So they waited. After about an hour, movement caught their eyes. The leader returned, but this time It carried something in its mouth. It dropped the object at Jason's feet. It was a smooth stone, carved into the shape of a claw. "Is this gift?" Molly asked, her voice full of awe. "I think so," Lisa said, kneeling down to examine it. "Look at the detail. It's beautiful." Jason picked up the stone carefully. "This is huge. They're trying to communicate." The leader let out a low rumble, almost like a purr. Then it turned and disappeared once more. The humans exchanged looks, excitement bubbling beneath their exhaustion. "What does this mean?" Tom asked. "It means we're getting somewhere," Jason said with a grin. "They're curious about us, maybe even willing to learn." Lisa smiled too, "And we can teach them, starting with language." Over the next few days, the humans returned to the cliffs daily, bringing more gifts and spending hours observing the predators. They noticed patterns in how the creatures interacted with each other, gestures, sounds, body positions. Lisa started jotting notes in her journal, trying to decode their behavior. Meanwhile, the predators began leaving items of their own near the human camp. Sometimes it was food, raw chunks of meat that smelled strange but intriguing. Other times, it was trinket stones, feathers, bits of metal scavenged from the planet's surface. Each exchange brought the two species closer together. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jason sat alone near the edge of the cliff. He held the carved claw stone in his hand, turning it over and over. The wind blew gently, carrying the scent of wildflowers and distant rain. A shadow fell across him. He looked up. The leader stood there, watching him. Jason froze. This was the first time one of the predators had approached him alone, without its pack. "Hi there," Jason said softly, knowing the creature wouldn't understand. "Nice night, isn't it?" The predator sat down on its haunches, tail swishing lazily. It tilted its head, studying him with those piercing eyes. Jason hesitated, then held out the claw stone. "You gave me this. Thank you." To his surprise, the predator extended a paw and tapped the stone lightly. Its claws clicked against the surface, then it made a sound, a deep, resonant tone that vibrated through the air. Jason listened carefully. The sound repeated twice, like a question. He mimicked it as best he could, humming the same pitch. The predator rumbled again, louder this time. It sounded almost pleased. For a long while they sat together, sharing the quiet. Neither moved to leave. When the predator finally stood and walked away, Jason felt a strange sense of connection. It wasn't trust yet, not fully, but it was a start. Back at the ship, Lisa greeted him with wide eyes. "You were gone for hours. What happened?"
Nothing.
"Much," Jason said, smiling. "Just talked to our friend." "Talked?" She raised an eyebrow. "Well, sort of. I think we're making progress." Lisa shook her head, laughing softly. "You're crazy. You know that?" "Maybe," Jason admitted. "But if being crazy means finding common ground with these guys, then I'll take it." Outside, the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. The predators watched from afar, their glowing eyes reflecting the light of distant worlds. Both sides were learning. Both sides were changing. And somewhere between the cliffs and the endless plains, a fragile bond began to form. How humans gained the trust of dangerous predators. HFY compilation. This part is written in third person, uses simple and basic English, avoids complex words or structures, and follows a compelling narrative. It's around 1,400 words. As requested, the days grew shorter as the planet moved closer to its dying sun. The red light cast long shadows across the rocky plains, making everything look older, quieter. Inside the human camp, the team worked tirelessly to understand the predators. Lisa spent hours recording their sounds, writing them down phonetically in her notebook. Jason tried mimicking those sounds, practicing late into the night when no one was watching. Meanwhile, the predators began to linger near the edge of the cliffs more often. They didn't approach directly, but their presence was felt, a pair of glowing eyes in the dark. A low growl carried on the wind. Sometimes they left gifts, bones carved into shapes, feathers tied with vines, or shiny stones polished smooth. By water, one morning, Jason woke early. He stepped outside the ship and looked toward the cliffs. The leader was there again, sitting alone like it had done before. This time it wasn't waiting, it was watching him. Jason grabbed a small bag from the ship. Inside were pieces of cooked meat and a few tools wrapped in cloth. He walked slowly toward the predator, keeping his hands visible. The leader watched every step, its tail flicking lazily behind it. "Good morning," Jason said softly, even though he knew the creature wouldn't understand. He placed the bag on the ground halfway between them and backed away. The leader sniffed the air, then stood and approached cautiously. It nudged the bag open with its nose and pulled out a piece of meat. After chewing thoughtfully, it tilted its head at Jason. "You're smart," Jason said. "I know you are." The leader let out a low rumble, almost like a purr. Then it turned and disappeared into the rocks. Later that day, while the team worked on analyzing soil samples, Molly noticed movement near the edge of the camp. 3 predators stood there, watching silently. One of them carried a bundle of leaves in its mouth. "Should we do something?" Molly asked nervously. "Stay calm," Jason replied. "Let them come to us." The lead predator stepped forward. Dropping the bundle at the edge of the camp, it was filled with strange fruits, round, purple, and glistening with moisture. The smell was sweet, almost floral. "Are these edible?" Don asked, poking the fruit with a stick. "Probably," Lisa said. "But we should test it first." She took a small bite and waited. Nothing happened. The fruit was tart but refreshing. "Safe," she announced, handing pieces to the others. As they ate, the predators sat nearby, watching closely. One of them made a soft clicking sound, tilting its head as if asking a question. Jason pointed to himself. "Jason," he said clearly. The predator tilted its head again, then repeated the sound it had made earlier. "Okay," Jason said with a smile. "Close enough." Over the next few days, the exchanges became more frequent. The predators brought food, trinkets, and other items. The humans responded with tools, cloth, and bits of technology they thought might interest the creatures. Interaction felt like a step forward, though progress was slow. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jason decided to try something new. He gathered the team around a fire they'd built, using dry wood and sparks from their equipment. "We need to show them we're not just visitors," Jason said. "We're here to stay for now, at least. Maybe we can teach them something useful." "Like what?" Tom asked, wincing as he adjusted his injured arm. "Something simple," Lisa suggested. "It's like building a shelter or starting a fire." Jason nodded. "Exactly. Let's start small." The next morning, they set up a demonstration area near the cliffs, using branches and vines. They constructed a basic lean-to. The predators arrived shortly after, watching silently from a distance. Jason gestured for the leader to come closer. It hesitated, but eventually stepped forward, its glowing eyes fixed on the structure. "This is a shelter," Jason explained, pointing to the lean-to. "Keeps you warm, keeps the rain off." The leader sniffed the structure, then tapped it gently with a claw. Satisfied, it let out a low growl. Encouraged, Jason handed the predator a vine and mimed tying it around to branches. The creature studied the motion carefully, then tried it itself. Its movements were clumsy at first, but it quickly got the hang of it. "Wow," Molly whispered. "They're fast learners. Smarter than most animals back home," Dan added. By the end of the day, the predators had helped build a second lean-to alongside the humans. It wasn't perfect, but it stood firm against the wind. The leader inspected the finished product with obvious pride, letting out a series of clicks and rumbles that sounded almost like laughter. That night, the humans and predators shared the space around the fire. The predators didn't join the humans directly, they stayed a few feet away, but their presence was comforting. The glow of the flames reflected in their eyes, making them look almost magical. "This feels right," Lisa said quietly, staring into the fire. Yeah, Jason agreed. For the first time, I feel like we're getting through to them. The next day brought an unexpected challenge. A storm rolled in, bringing heavy rain and fierce winds. The humans retreated to their ship, but the predators stayed outside, huddled under the lean-tos they'd built together. When the storm passed, Jason and the team went to check on them. The shelters had held strong, protecting the predators. From the worst of the weather, the leader approached Jason, carrying a piece of bark in its mouth. It dropped the item at his feet and stepped back. "What's this?" Jason asked, picking it up. On the bark was a crude drawing lines and shapes scratched into the surface. It looked like a map. "Is this their territory?" Lisa asked, leaning over Jason's shoulder. "Could be," Jason replied. "Or maybe it's an invitation." The leader let out a low rumble, then turned and began walking away. It stopped a few paces later, looking back at the humans. "You want us to follow?" Jason asked. The predator nodded once, its glowing eyes locking onto his. "Double quotes well," Jason said, turning to the team. "Looks like we've been invited somewhere." They packed supplies and followed the leader, staying close as it led them deeper into the rocky terrain. The path was steep and uneven, but the predators moved effortlessly, guiding the humans safely along narrow ridges and across shallow streams. After hours of walking, they reached a massive cave hidden behind a waterfall. The entrance was wide, framed by jagged rocks and glowing moss that gave off a faint blue light. "This must be their den," Lisa whispered, awe in her voice. Inside, the cave opened into a vast chamber. Bioluminescent plants lined the walls, casting soft colors across the floor. Nests made of leaves and fur dotted the space. Strange symbols were carved into the stone. The predators gathered around the humans, watching curiously as they explored. This is incredible," Molly said, running her hand over one of the carvings. "It's like art." "In history," Lisa added. "These symbols might tell stories or record events." The leader approached Jason again, holding out another piece of bark. This one had more detailed markings, resembling patterns Lisa had seen in their vocalizations. "You're trying to teach us," Jason said, realization dawning. "Aren't you?" The predator let out a deep rumble, almost like agreement. "We need to learn faster," Jason told the team. "If we can understand their language, we can really communicate." Over the next few days, the humans immersed themselves in the predator's world. Lisa recorded every sound, matching them to gestures and symbols. Jason practiced speaking the sounds aloud, earning approving growls from the leader. The predators seemed eager to share their knowledge, teaching the humans how to hunt, track, and navigate the harsh terrain. One evening, as the group sat together in the cave, the leader approached Jason with a serious expression. It made a series of sounds, slower and clearer than usual. Jason listened carefully, repeating the syllables in his mind. Then he tried to mimic them. "Tika, rune." The leader tilted its head, then nodded sharply. "What does it mean?" Lisa asked. "Not sure yet," Jason admitted. "But I think it's important." The predator repeated the phrase, adding a gesturous sweeping motion with its paw. "Maybe it means home," Lisa suggested. "Or belong," Molly added. Whatever it meant, the moment felt significant. The leader rested a paw on Jason's shoulder, a gesture of trust. Outside, the storm clouds cleared, revealing a sky full of stars. The humans and predators sat together, sharing the silence. For the first time, it didn't feel like two separate species meeting. It felt like family. Slowly, painfully, trust was being built. And with it came hope, not just for survival, but for something greater. How humans gain the trust of dangerous predators. HFY compilation. This part is written in third person, uses simple and basic English, avoids complex words or structures, and follows a compelling narrative. It's around 1,400 words. As requested, the days passed quickly as the bond between humans and predators deepened. Every morning, Jason woke up early to practice the sounds he'd learned from the creatures. Lisa spent hours matching those sounds to gestures and symbols carved into the cave walls. Molly worked on understanding their diet, studying the plants and animals they hunted. Dan and Tom focused on building better shelters and tools, blending human ingenuity with predator instincts. One day, while exploring near the edge of the cliffs, Jason heard a sharp cry. It wasn't like the usual growls or rumbles the predators made. It was higher pitched. It's almost desperate. He ran toward the sound, heart pounding. When he reached the source, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A young predator. Cub was trapped under a fallen tree branch. Its small body writhed in panic, claws scraping against the ground. Nearby, two adult predators paced anxiously, letting out low growls. Jason froze for a moment. The adults turned to look at him, their glowing eyes wary but pleading. "I can help," Jason said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. The adults hesitated, then stepped aside. Jason moved carefully, kneeling beside the cub. The branch was heavy, too much for one person to lift alone. He waved to the others who had followed him. "Don, Tom, help me." Together, they pushed and pulled at the branch. Sweat poured down their faces as they strained against the weight. Finally, with a loud crack, the branch shifted enough for the cub to squirm free. The cub scrambled away, limping slightly, but otherwise unharmed. Its mother rushed to its side, licking its face and checking for injuries. The father stood nearby, watching Jason closely. "You're welcome," Jason said. Though he knew they wouldn't understand, the father let out a deep rumble, almost like a sigh. Then it stepped forward and bowed its head slightly, a gesture Jason hadn't seen before. "What does that mean?" Molly whispered. "Gratitude," Jason guessed, "or maybe respect." The family disappeared into the rocks, leaving the humans alone. Jason felt a strange warmth in his chest. It wasn't just about helping the cub, it was about being accepted back. At the camp, Lisa noticed a change in the predators' behavior. They seemed more relaxed around the humans, less cautious. Some even began following them during their daily routines, observing how they worked and communicated. "They're learning from us," Lisa said one evening as she wrote in her journal. "But we're also learning from them." "Like what?" Tom asked, adjusting his sling. His arm was healing, though it still ached sometimes. "How to survive here," Lisa replied. "They know this planet better than we ever will. If we want to stay, we need their help." The next day brought another surprise. The leader approached Jason with a series of clicks and growls, pointing toward the horizon. Jason listened carefully, trying to piece together the meaning. "Is it an invitation?" he asked. The leader nodded sharply, then turned and began walking. "Where are we going?" Don asked nervously. "Not sure," Jason admitted, "but I think we should follow." The journey took them far from the cliffs, across rocky plains, and through dense forests. The predators moved swiftly, guiding the humans along narrow paths and over treacherous terrain. After hours of walking, they reached a vast canyon. At the bottom flowed a wide river, its waters shimmering under the red sun. The leader stopped and gestured toward the river. Jason looked closer and saw something moving beneath the surface. Long, sleek shapes gliding silently. "Fish," Molly said, excitement in her voice. "This must be one of their food sources." The predators waded into the water, diving smoothly, and emerging moments later with fish clutched in their jaws. They brought the catch back to the humans, offering it as a gift. "Thank you," Jason said, taking a fish and examining it. "This is amazing." Lisa smiled. "They're showing us how to live here, teaching us where to find food, water, shelter." The team stayed by the river for several hours, learning how the predators fished and shared their catch. When the sun began to set, the leader led them back to the cliffs. That night, as they sat around the fire, Jason felt a sense of accomplishment. They weren't just visitors anymore. They were becoming part of this world. But their peace didn't last. The next morning, the sky darkened suddenly. Thick clouds rolled in, bringing with them a strange metallic smell. The predators became restless, pacing back and forth with low growls. "Something's wrong," Lisa said, looking up at the sky. Moments later, a deafening roar split the air. A massive shadow passed overhead, blocking out the light. The humans, stared in shock as a sleek, mechanical ship descended from the clouds. It wasn't human. The ship landed heavily on the ground, kicking up dust and debris. Its surface gleamed with cold, unnatural light. Doors slid open, and figures emerged, not organic beings, but machines. Their bodies were smooth and angular, their movements precise and calculated. The predators reacted instantly. They formed a protective circle around the humans, snarling and baring their teeth. "Who are they?" Molly whispered, gripping her scanner tightly. "Not friends," Jason muttered. "Stay close." The machines advanced slowly, their glowing eyes scanning the group. One of them raised a weapon-like appendage, aiming it at the leader without hesitation. The leader lunged forward, tackling the machine to the ground. The other predators joined the fight, attacking with claws and speed. The machines responded with bursts of energy, bright flashes lighting up the battlefield. "We have to help them," Lisa shouted. "How?" Tom asked, clutching his injured arm. Jason grabbed a fallen branch and charged into the fray. The others followed, using whatever tools they had to defend themselves. The battle was chaotic, filled with growls, explosions, and the sharp hum of machinery. Despite their strength, the predators were outnumbered. One by one, they fell back, injured but not defeated. Then Jason noticed something the machines were harvesting fragments of rock from the ground. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to take resources. "They're stealing from us," Jason yelled. "From all of us." The leader seemed to understand, let out a piercing roar, rallying. The remaining predators, together, they launched a final attack, driving the machines back toward their ship. As the last machine retreated inside, ship lifted off, disappearing into the clouds. Silence returned to the battlefield. The humans gathered around the injured, predators tending to their wounds as best they could. The leader limped forward, its body battered but alive. It looked at Jason with weary eyes, then lowered its head in gratitude. "You saved us," Jason said quietly, "and we'll save you." The bond between humans and predators had been tested and strengthened. They were no longer just allies. They were comrades, united against a common threat. As the sun rose again, painting the sky with streaks of gold, the two species stood together. The road ahead would be hard, but they faced it as one. How Humans Gain the Trust of Dangerous Predators HFY compilation. This part is written in third person, uses simple and basic English, avoids complex words or structures, and follows a compelling narrative. It's around 1,400 words. As requested, the days following the attack were tense. The humans and predators worked together to clean up the battlefield, gathering broken pieces of metal left behind by the machines. The air smelled of burnt earth and oil, reminders of the fight that had taken place. Despite their exhaustion, no one rested for long. Jason and Lisa spent hours studying the fragments, trying to understand what the machines wanted. Molly examined the damaged parts under her scanner, shaking her head in frustration. "These aren't natural," she said finally. "They're made from something alien. Not like anything we've seen before." "But they came here for a reason," Jason replied, holding up a shard of glowing crystal. "They wanted this." Lisa nodded. "And they'll come back for more." The leader watched them silently, its glowing eyes reflecting the dim light of the red sun. It let out a low growl, then gestured toward the cliffs with its paw. "You want us to follow you again?" Jason asked. The predator nodded sharply. The team packed their supplies and followed the leader deeper into the rocky terrain. The journey was long and difficult, but the predators moved with purpose, guiding the humans through narrow paths and steep ridges. After hours of walking, they reached a massive underground structure hidden beneath layers of rock and moss. Inside, the chamber was vast, filled with strange plants that glowed faintly in the dark. At the center stood a towering stone pedestal, and on top of it rested a large crystal pulsing with light. "Alive with energy. This must be what they're after," Lisa whispered, staring at the crystal. The leader approached the pedestal and touched the crystal gently. It let out a soft hum, responding to the predator's touch. "It's important to them," Jason said. "Like sacred." The leader turned to Jason, making a series of clicks and growls. Lisa quickly translated the sounds based on her notes. Protect. She said, "It means protect. They're asking us to help guard it," Jason realized. He looked at the others. Dan tightened his grip on his tool belt. Tom adjusted his sling, his face grim but determined. Molly clutched her scanner, ready to record every detail. "We'll do it," Jason said firmly. Together. The leader let out a deep rumble, almost like approval. It gestured for the humans to step closer to the pedestal. One by one, the team approached the crystal. When Jason placed his hand on its surface, he felt a strange warmth, like the stone was alive. The glow brightened slightly, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. "What did you feel?" Lisa asked. "Connection," Jason replied, "like it knows we're here to help." The leader stepped back, allowing the humans to explore the chamber further. They found carvings on the walls, symbols and patterns that told stories of the Predator's past. Some depicted battles against the machines, while others showed peaceful moments of hunting and survival. "This is their history," Lisa said, running her fingers over the carvings. "Their legacy. And now we're part of it," Molly added softly. As the humans studied the chamber, the Predators began preparing defenses. They dragged rocks and vines to create barriers near the entrance, reinforcing the structure against future attacks. The humans joined in, using tools and ingenuity to strengthen the fortifications. "If those machines come back, they'll regret it," Dan said, hammering a stake into the ground. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Tom muttered, though. His tone was resolute. That night, the group gathered around a small fire inside the chamber. The Predators curled up nearby, their glowing eyes watching the flames dance. The atmosphere was calm, but the tension lingered, a shared understanding. "Of the danger ahead, we need a plan," Jason said, breaking the silence. "If they return, we can't just rely on brute force." "Act," agreed Lisa said. "We need to use their weaknesses against them." "What weaknesses?" Molly asked. "Speed," Jason replied. "The Predators are faster than those machines, and smarter. If we combine our tech with their instincts, we might stand a chance." "And the crystal?" Don asked. "Oh, what role does it play?" "Its power," Lisa said thoughtfully. "Not just for them, for us too. If we can harness its energy, then we'll have an edge," Jason finished. The next morning, the team set to work. Lisa and Molly focused on studying the crystal, trying to understand its properties. Jason and Dan worked with the Predators, teaching them how to use simple human tools like nets and traps. Tom stayed close to the entrance, keeping watch. Days passed and the chamber transformed into a fortress. The humans and Predators trained together, blending their skills into a seamless strategy. The Predators learned to use ropes and pulleys, while the humans adapted to moving quickly and quietly across the rocky terrain. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the leader approached Jason with a serious expression. A series of sounds pointing toward the sky. "You think they're coming back?" Jason asked. The leader nodded sharply. "Soon." Another nod. Jason turned to the team. "Get ready. They're coming." The group prepared for battle, checking weapons and reinforcing defenses. The Predators sharpened their claws and tested their new tools. Their glowing eyes fierce with determination when the first sign of trouble appeared. A distant hum. Growing louder, the humans and Predators took their positions. The chamber was silent, save for the soft crackle of the crystal's glow. Moments later, the machines arrived. They descended from the sky in waves, their sleek forms cutting through the clouds. The battle began instantly, chaotic and intense. The Predators struck first, using their speed to dodge the machines' attacks. The humans followed, setting off traps and throwing nets to slow the invaders down. The crystal's energy pulsed brighter, fueling their movements and strengthening their resolve. The fight raged on, each side giving everything they had. The Predators fought with ferocity, their claws tearing through metal. The humans used their tools and ingenuity, striking at weak points and exploiting flaws in the machine's design. Finally, after what felt like hours, the last machine fell. The battlefield was quiet once more, littered with debris and sparks. The humans and predators stood together, breathing heavily, but victorious. The leader let out a triumphant roar, echoed by the rest of its pack. "We did it," Jason said, his voice hoarse but filled with pride. "Together," Lisa added, smiling despite her exhaustion. The bond between the two species had never been stronger. It faced a common enemy and emerged stronger, not just as individuals, but as a united force. As the sun rose again, painting the sky with streaks of gold, the humans and predators gathered around the crystal. It pulsed softly, its light steady and warm. "This belongs to all of us now," Jason said, placing a hand on the pedestal. "Symbol of trust and survival." The leader stepped forward, bowing its head in acknowledgement. From that day forward, the humans and predators stood side by side, guardians of the crystal and protectors of their shared home.